All right, moving on. Our next presentation will be a tag team effort between Darren Tanke and Pete Reeser presenting eye surgery and the fossil preparator, some personal perspectives.
Good morning, all. We've certainly seen a wide variety of talks at this conference, talks on gluing, stabilizing, moving, flipping specimens. But Pete and I wanted to take a step back and look at us as technicians, us as collections people, and our comments today are focused more on those types of people and volunteers in preparation labs, but it also holds true for other people that work in a museum setting or doing museum work out in the field. So between the two of us, I think Pete and I have the better part of 7 decades of experience, and both Pete and I have recently undergone eye surgery in the last couple of years. So we wanted to share today our experiences as a guideline for you if you're thinking of getting LASIK surgery or will need cataract surgery, and some of the effects of these surgeries that we think might be important to know if you are managing or supervising or training people that have undergone these operations, especially retired people that are volunteers in your preparation labs. So we have 5 senses, and I guess after Mark Graham's talk the other day, I guess the sense of smell could actually be a bit useful for detecting pyrite disease, but I think most of us would agree that your eyes and your hands are probably the most important parts of your body to do fossil preparation. As I grew up, I became interested in fossils very early on, but most of my life was wearing glasses. I tried in 1984, as you can see in the bottom row there, second from the left, getting contacts, which was a bad idea. I discovered rather quickly that wind and dust and flying rock chips are just not conducive to contacts as a technician. So I've been stuck with glasses pretty much from the get-go. I was a happy kid early on, but I probably didn't see the world through rose-colored glasses, but I was probably half blind and didn't see what was really going on. Glasses were good because they could actually help you see what you were doing, but when you wear glasses, as many of us can relate, they get fingerprints and smudged, you can damage them, they can get lost, they go out of fashion. And especially during preparation, they can get scratched and chipped, and I'm sure all of us have had a smudge on our glasses and pulled out our shirt tail and cleaned them off, and forgetting that we've just been doing some air abrasive work the hour before. You put your glasses back on, and you're like, what the hell? You take them off, and you're like, crap. So glasses were a necessity for me, but I just wanted rid of them. And growing up wearing glasses, of course, you're being called 4 eyes all the time, and so there's a lot of social stigma that just wanted rid of glasses. So a couple years ago, Patty and I were walking through a shopping mall, and there was a LASIK eye surgery kiosk, and I made the decision to just do it, get the LASIK surgery done. So we've all done this as children. We try on our friends' glasses to see how bad their eyes are. Well, that doesn't really work. You're looking through their prescription. You don't actually get a sense for what their vision was like. So before LASIK, I decided to show you what my vision was like without glasses. So I mounted a camera on a tripod, took a series of in-focus shots, far away, medium, close up. Then I looked at the same scene without glasses, put my glasses back on, memorized the scene, put my glasses back on, focused the camera till it was out of focus, and I would double check that till I could actually take an out-of-focus picture which would show you how bad my vision really was. So here's a shot off my porch, with and without. I can see Badlands in the distance, so maybe I can find my way around the Badlands at least. But things get kind of haywire for close up. So here we are, 2.5 feet away. I can't see a thing. And even closer yet, I still can't see a thing. In fact, that Coke can or a newspaper, I have to bring it about 4 inches off the end of my nose before everything, irrespective of font size, comes into focus. So my eyesight was pretty poor without glasses. So I decided to have the LASIK procedure done. Cost me about $3,000. So when you get the procedure done, you go to the office and you have to undergo about 4 hours of fairly intensive inspections. You're getting your regular eye tests. They're looking inside your eyeball. They're using all kinds of devices which are mysterious to me. They're blowing air on your eye. They're pressing things into your eye to see how much pressure's in there. And then they come back and say, yes, you qualify. If you don't qualify, they're not going to do it. Then you have to go see a person who I think is kind of like a psychologist. They want to make sure you really want to do this and why. And if you've made that hurdle, then you go talk to someone about money. You want to do this? How are you going to pay for it? They want to make that sure that's done in advance. Then the day of the surgery, you go in there, they do a bit more eye inspections, and then they put you in a dark, cold room, very uncomfortable. They bring you into the operating table, and through each of the steps on the day of the surgery, they keep asking you, who are you? And I thought, geez, these guys don't have their shit together. They don't even know who I am. And finally I just said, why don't you know who I am? And they said, we want to know who you are at every stage to make sure that you are getting your LASIK procedure. I don't want his, right? I want my LASIK procedure. So they will ask you constantly who you are. They mount a microtome on your eye. Well, first they reef open your eye with a speculum kind of thing. A microtome, they cut the lens or the covering of your eye across about 3/4 of the way, flip it over. They give you a squeezy ball, like those little hand exercise balls to relieve stress. They say if you're getting all stressed out, just squeeze that or wriggle your feet. They clamp your head in a padded clamp. There's a hole in the table you're laying on to rest the back of your head into, and there's a red light. And they say, stare at that and don't move your eyes. If you do move your eyes, the machine will cut off instantly, and then they'll resume the procedure once you calm down. So the laser cuts away the lens to the required specifications. They flip the lens back. A lady comes along with something that looks like a canoe paddle, and she's dabbing that over your eyes, and that's to squeeze out any air bubbles that are in there. And you sit up and you swing your legs off the table, and you're done, and you can see right away. But I had some issues with itchiness and dryness, which we'll get into later. So the procedure is really quick, about 5 minutes per eye. So post-LASIK, I did the same experiment to show you what I can see with and without, or with before LASIK and with post-LASIK. So we can see now I can see off my porch perfectly well. And here's the different distances. I can see pretty good medium length, but as from about wrist distance away and closer, my vision starts to fade away. And so I do still have to wear reading glasses or an optivisor for preparation. And they told me this. They said, you will walk out of here a happy customer except for 18 inches and closer. So what I paid for, I got. So I knew exactly what I was getting into ahead of time. So these are what I have to wear today. And I guess with advancing years, it's probably wise to wear them anyway, because all of our eyesight fails a little bit as we get older. And now we're going to switch over to Pete for his perspectives.
Okay, I had cataract surgery, and it's similar to Darren's, only a little less traumatic, I think. And this is a disturbing image. Let's get to the next one. This is about how the difference in sight there. My vision was actually worse than that, and it happened so slowly, so gradually, you don't recognize it. Like the frog in the pan of water on the stove, you know, by the time he realizes it's hot, it's cooked. Well, I got to the point where I couldn't safely drive anymore. I couldn't read street signs, etc., etc. Although I've always had excellent vision within 5 inches of my eyes, great depth perception and everything. And the procedure wiped that away, but what I gained in return is being able to see what's at my feet, particularly when prospecting, etc., etc., and to keep from breaking my ankle so often, stepping where I shouldn't. But I didn't have the foresight as Darren did, to document all of this before I had the procedure. I never thought of it until I talked to Darren about it. And as you can see, my procedure is a little simpler in that they take a slice, a tiny slice in your eye, and they remove your natural lens and stick in a plastic one. Now, since I don't have those images Darren had, I had to mine the internet to find something that would represent what I'm trying to get across. In my mid-40s, I used to run crews of volunteers, 50 or more, and I thought that I understood, like this guy, I understood the mechanics of our prime volunteer demographic, retired people, and how fine manipulation and hand-eye coordination worked. And so I would direct my hordes of volunteers. That's Fritz Lang up there directing the extras in Metropolis. So I thought I understood how all of that worked. But the best pair of hands that ever walked into my lab belonged to a guy who was 70 years old. His hands shook, and he had just had cataract surgery. And the contradiction in what I thought I understood and this person fascinated me from that day forward. So at that time, I saw about as much as this guy does. And also, it's a metaphor for having cataracts. After the surgery, I felt somewhat like this guy looks. After cataract surgery, you can't immediately see that they don't do both eyes at once. You can't immediately see out of the eye that's had the surgery. In fact, you have to have a patch over it for a couple of days. And it's somewhat uncomfortable, but even before you put the patch on, it's amazing how well you can see at a distance. And so I finally understood how it all worked. This is another still from the making of Metropolis. I finally understood how it all worked. And the value, there are two reasons to investigate this and talk about it. One is to evaluate whether or not we can maintain our quality control in what we do as we age individually, and the other is to assess the abilities of the volunteers we direct. And also when I would train volunteers, it didn't occur to me that they didn't see what I saw because of the vision problems or the typical problems of aged vision. And both of us have a unique advantage as our vision has changed in that we know exactly what we should see. And we're not content until we see what we should see. But if we didn't have that, trying to explain that to volunteers who don't have that prior knowledge of what they should see is difficult. And it's majorly difficult if you don't understand that they don't have the prior knowledge you do and know when they are actually seeing a clarity, the resolution of what they're looking at, if they don't see the same resolution you do. I wish I had known this a number of years ago, because I'm now the same age as the best volunteer I ever had, whose hands shook and had just had cataract surgery. So I've turned into Bill Lang, the best volunteer I ever had. And it's provided me far more insight into the training of volunteers, but now I don't train volunteers anymore. Basically, I am one. But we thought that this sort of knowledge would be useful to those of you that are still running groups of volunteers and training them, particularly in micro prep and that sort of thing. Now, evidently, since I haven't heard the ding, we still have a little time, so I should explain that I was very nearsighted, had excellent near vision, but it was 2400 beyond about 5 inches. And now I can see the horizon clearly. I'm much better at prospecting than I ever was in my life, but I've lost that superb, very close vision I had. So, and also my depth perception, still got 5 minutes, depth perception is about half of what it used to be, which means, see, I still wear trifocals, and so I have to switch in between the different lenses about twice as often, and under the microscope I have to adjust the focus about twice as often. I think I have one of the best microscopes you could use, which is a Wild, and which certainly probably has the best depth of field of any microscope available. And since I'm using the same microscope I used before, I can very accurately judge how my vision has altered, which could easily translate into training volunteers with the same condition using the same equipment. I guess we have lots of time for questions.
No, we still have more slides, Pete.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I do.
I'm sorry.
So now
I am sorry.
Yes. So now we're going to swap.
Okay.
What we did before we wrote the abstract is on social media, we asked people to respond if they'd had LASIK or cataract surgery, and if they could please tell us how they felt about it after the fact. This chart is in the abstract volume, but there were some general observations. Our sample size was admittedly small. Most people reported an impaired night vision, some of it, and myself included. I can't just go outside at night from a bright room anymore. I need a few more minutes to adjust so I can see where I'm going if I'm taking like the garbage out. It's a bit of an adventure. In the backyard, tripping over things that used to be able to see, but you can't see anymore.
Yeah.
Eye dryness is a pretty standard across the board symptom. You'll get specialized eye drops after the operation that you use for up to 2 weeks. It's always good to have some eye drops, just Visine, for about a year. A lot of people close-up focusing issues, which can be supplemented with reading glasses and or an OptiVisor. And across the board, no one had any regrets having the procedure done. So if any of you are thinking about doing this, unlike me, I had a field season like a week or so after my operation. So you should at least have a week off after post-surgery. So you stay away from where you work, away from the lab. And you should try to avoid things like bright lights, high magnification, heat or wind, and any kind of dust or rock chip generation. You want to take care of those eyes while they're healing up. And if I'd have known this, schedule your operation immediately after your field season ends, so you can have the maximum amount of time to heal and adjust. And as your eyeballs are healing, they fluctuate slightly. And even if they change like 0.5%, that will mean reading glasses that worked today, like plus ×1 lenses, won't work. You need ×2 lenses. And you're constantly, as it swells or shrinks, swells and shrinks, you're constantly needing different strengths of reading glasses. You always have to have 3 or 4 pairs handy, and eventually once your eyes sort themselves out, then you'll know ×2 are the best ones. And it's important for me to tell you that it's not like going to the optometrist and getting a new set of glasses. It's like a whole new set of eyes, and in many ways you're looking at something and you know exactly what it is, but you're not seeing it the same way, and your brain in a sense has to re-hardwire itself to see what you're seeing. It's hard to explain. If you have the procedure done, you'll experience it yourself. Talking about volunteers, we've heard some talks at this conference about volunteers. I went on Google Images, typed in volunteers, and I got these kinds of pictures. And you can see there's a lot of senior people, retired people. These people have a lot of spare time on their hands, and they want to help do things. And certainly in paleontology, we have a lot of retired people helping as well. All these people have reduced eye vision or maybe have undergone LASIK or cataract surgery. So you have to be aware of that. They should also, just like the last couple slides, avoid any kind of eye strain or dust or rock chips or bright lights until their healing has been completed. And the most important take-home message from all this talk is regarding volunteers. If you have someone new that is retired that has undergone any kind of eye surgery procedure, they may have difficulties, not only from their own inexperience as a preparator, but they just might not be able to see what we see. So you have to take that into account and maybe give them some non-detailed volunteer work at first until their eyes have fully healed. And on that, we shall end. And if there's any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them.